What is good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown this weekend, Saturday, July 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern, live on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. Manny Pacquiao is going to be making his return against the champion, Mario Barrios, at 147. He's going to be defending his WBC 147 welterweight title against the legend Manny Pacquiao. Is going to be making his return after 4 years not being in the ring. It's been 4 years. He's 46 years old right now, and he's going to be making his return. Look, first off, pay-per-views. Too many pay-per-views. We are getting crushed with pay-per-views, okay? We just paid last week pay-per-view to watch the Shakur Stevenson Edgar Berlanga card. That was a pay-per-view card, y'all. That was a pay-per-view card. And then next week, we're going to be paying again to watch Usyk against Daniel Dubois too. On the same night, we're going to be paying Manny Pacquiao against Mario Barrios. I mean, I know a lot of y'all are not going to be paying for it because a lot of y'all are going to stream, but I'm actually going to pay for it because I'm going to be doing the live coverage, and I'm not like that. You know, if I'm going to be doing coverage on here, making content, I'm going to pay for the pay-per-view. All right, but listen, this pay-per-view is going to be on Amazon Prime, and I will be covering this card simultaneously with the Jesse Bam Rodriguez card as well. That's going to be free on the Zone. But earlier that day, I'm going to be live for the Usyk and Dubois card. So we're going to be on YouTube all day long, live for like 12 hours straight, talking boxing. It's going to be crazy, but we're going to get through it. We've done it before. 3 cards in one day is kind of crazy, but we've been here. We've been doing this, all right? Shout out to everyone that's going to be here Saturday. Please check in. Please subscribe if you are new. Now, let's talk about this fight. Manny Pacquiao, 46 years old. I don't know if he is to win this title shot. Is it going to be the oldest champion of all time? I know George Foreman. I believe George Foreman is the oldest as far as heavyweights. I think Bernard Hopkins might have been a little bit older than George Foreman when he won his title. And I think it's going to be between George Foreman and Manny Pacquiao for all time as far as oldest champion. All right, so that's really why we're having this fight. Also, we're having, let's be real, Mario Barrios, pound for pound, not the greatest champion out there. You know what I mean? He's just not. It is what it is. No disrespect. Mario Barrios is a good fighter. He's a solid fighter, but the division has stepped. It fell off a little bit. You know, we're coming off the guys like Crawford, Errol Spence Jr., Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Kell Brook. We're coming off those guys. And before that, who do we have? Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Tim Bradley, Manuel Marquez, you know, all of those dudes. So we've had a good run of welterweights, even, you know, and I'm skipping people. I'm not even bringing up Cotto before that, Zab Judah. You know, I can go on and on how the welterweight division had a very good, once the heavyweight division fell off, the welterweight division had all the biggest names for a couple of decades. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to this fight in this time right now, the champions, we had Boots, who was unified, who just moved up. So these belts, it's going to be 2 belts that's going to be available soon. Brian Norman Jr. is a champion, who a lot of people still feel that is relatively unproven, right? Hasn't fought any big names yet. Boots wanted to fight him. He wanted to fight Boots. I don't know what was going on, but I do know what was going on. I already talked about it, but we're not going to talk about it here in this video. And then you have Mario Barrios, who, if you don't know Barrios, he's been fighting for about 12 years. He turned pro in 2013. He's moved up all the way up from super bantamweight, right? So he's been fighting roughly around 122, right? Went up to 126 featherweight, went up to 130, and then he eventually just shot up to 140 where he started fighting some good competition. We all know about the Tank Davis fight where he was stopped late, but he was one of the few fighters that did well against Tank up into the point he was stopped. He eventually moved up at 140 for Giovanni Santiago, for Fabian Maidana, all right, for Keith Thurman, which, you know, Keith Thurman pretty much dominated for the most part, but he did give Keith Thurman some trouble. I think he did hurt him to the body at some point. You know, Thurman's kind of weak to the body, so he did hit him with a good shot there. But he became WBC interim title shot, and when Crawford moved up, he was able to fight Maidana for Fabian Maidana, not Marcos. and he was able to pick up a belt, WBC title, and he beat Dennis Ugas, who beat Manny Pacquiao in his last professional fight. And he recently had a draw against Abel Ramos, okay, in his most recent fight, which I was ended up making some money from on that draw. But anyway, let's talk about this though. So we got Manny Pacquiao's 46. We know Manny. We know he's a southpaw. We know he's one of the quickest fighters and legendary, most championship titles in one division, right? But when we're talking about the dimensions, the size, Manny Pacquiao is much shorter. He's like 5'5", 5'6", short arms, his athleticism was the key. His athleticism, his speed, his power, his angles. That was really the key for him in his prime years, So he was able to beat a lot of guys that was bigger than him. So we already know that size is not going to be the complete factor in this fight. What I think is going to be the factor is age. You got youth against a really old guy. There's a 16-year gap between these two. And one of them, the 46 years old, haven't fought in 4 years. Barrios is 6 foot. He's listed as 6 foot. We already know he has a long reach, and he's more of a rangy fighter. He's not an inside fighter. I mean, he has some dog in him. He can walk you down and rough you up a little bit on the inside, but for the most part, at the highest level, he's fought a rangy fight. When I'm looking at Abel Ramos fight, when I'm looking at the Tank Davis fight, he's fighting more of a rangy type of fight. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, Pacquiao is going to have to close in distance. He's going to have to get in range. And what does he do? By slipping and shooting that straight left and following it up with the swivel jab, throwing combinations, flurries. Once he's in, he's using his feet, which he has some of the quickest feet on the planet. He's able to just come in, shoot a shot. Once he's in, he starts throwing combinations. This is the problem. And this is where we get real. I was able to watch some of their recent fights, right? Manny Pacquiao, specifically Keith Thurman. That fight was back in 2019. He beat Keith Thurman. At that point, he made history, becoming champion against an undefeated fighter, that was probably pretty damn close to his prime, right? Even though there was some periods where Keith Thurman wasn't inactive even before he fought Manny Pacquiao, right? But at that point, Keith Thurman was still much younger. And he beat him, and it was one of the best fights of the year, one of the best moments in history. But that was back in 2019. That's 6 years ago. 2 years after that, he fights Dennis Ugas. And in that fight with Ugas, I seen a dramatic difference in Manny Pacquiao. Why? Because even though he beat Keith Thurman, he went into politics a little bit, but he decided to come back and fight Ugas for another title. WBA title was on the line at that time. The problem is, I seen Pacquiao look like an older man in that fight. In that fight, he was an older man. It doesn't matter what he did back in the day. It doesn't matter. He was still quick and still good at the time. He was an older guy. He was breathing heavy by the third round, And one thing about Pacquiao is he wasn't just explosive. He didn't just have power and speed, but he also had volume. He was doing a lot of, when we look at Pacquiao that fought Cotto, and De La Hoya, and even when you go to the Chris Algieri fight, when we're talking about his fights as a welterweight, against Margarito, he was throwing so many punches in those fights. And now he could see there's periods he has to pace himself. And that puts him at a disadvantage because part of his strength was to overwhelm his opponents, not with just power and speed, but he was also throwing a lot of punches. He was out throwing a lot of the guys that he beat. So when I saw the Ugas fight and I saw how tired he was, I was just saying to myself, like, nah, this is not going to be enough for him. This is too much. He's too old. He doesn't have the gas tank. He's way better than Ugas, but he doesn't have the gas tank to do it. He's way better than Mario Barrios. All right, but it could be a problem, especially because before there was a 2-year period where he didn't fight. Now it's a 4-year period, and now he's 46. He's not 42 anymore. You know what I mean? And I'm not mentioning the exhibition. He had an exhibition, I believe, last year. I did watch it. It wasn't good. The reason why I'm not including that in the breakdown is because I don't expect the same amount of preparation for a championship fight. So even though he didn't look good in that fight, he probably didn't win that fight. I don't expect the same level of intensity and preparation like I would in a championship fight like this one. Having a full camp versus an exhibition is not the same thing. You know what I mean? So nothing was on the line for that fight. It's just a quick check. So he's been inactive for 4 years. And Mario Barrios, who I do not think is anywhere near Manny Pacquiao as far as talent, the guy is young. He's 30 years old. He's tall. He's rangy. He's been fighting at the division for about 4 or 5 fights now. So he does have some experience. He did fight Tank Davis, who has some similarities, especially with the straight left hand. And Tank is better than that version of Tank is better than this version of Manny Pacquiao. Let's be real. It is what it is. Tank, explosive, fast. Barrios did well against that version of Tank down at 130. Drained or not, whether you think he was drained or not, he did better. So what do I expect in this fight without holding you guys too long? Because I don't want to hold you guys too long, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a guy that's 46 years old coming off a 4-year break. Few things that I noticed that Ugas did well that Barrios don't do and that Keith Thurman didn't do. The reason why Ugas had some success in that fight, he won, is he knew how to smother Pacquiao's volume, his flurries. Whenever Pacquiao got in range, if you want to look at the fight, it's still there. Ugas will push towards him, push him off him, or push, step in with him. Pacquiao would step in to throw his flurries. Ugas would step in with him to smother his offense. I didn't see Keith Thurman doing that. Keith Thurman tried to rely off his power and his explosiveness. Didn't really work out for him. Almost did. It was a close fight. The difference between those two and even Barrios, like when I see Barrios fight, when I see him fight Ramos, when I see him fight Tank, when I see him fight Maidana, Barrios is a rangy guy. On the inside, he just kind of covers up. Barrios doesn't really have great defense. He doesn't move his head that well. He'll slip a shot to counter every now and then, but that's not his true game. His true game is to work behind the jab. Everything is behind the jab, So he changed levels a lot. He changed the jab up. He'll get low. He'll throw the jab upward. He'll throw the right hand behind it, straight right hand. He'll step back and time guys with an uppercut as they're, coming forward, but he's kind of limited offensively. Once you get in his space and make him uncomfortable, he gets hit a lot. Defensively, he just doesn't have the reflexes. His legs are not really that quick. He can move well, but he doesn't have quick legs. Pacquiao at 46 probably still have quicker legs than Barrios right now. So what Barrios would have to do is mainly, and I think this is one of the key things too, Barrios doesn't have the greatest cardio as well. He gassed out against Tank, and Tank was able to walk him down and beat him up. He gassed out in his most recent fight against Abel Ramos. Started off good, but by the 3rd, 4th round, he already started fading because he was just creating so much offense. He was just so consistent with the jab and right hand. Once he slows down, he's an easier target. And offensively, he's not as strong and he's not as consistent in the later half of these fights. So what I will say for Barrios, in order for him to be successful in this fight, he's going to have to pace himself. Cardio has to be a key. I know he's younger and fresher, but if he gets burnt out against Pacquiao, then we'll just be seeing two fighters in the ring tired. And I believe that if the fight is even anywhere close, right? If it's close at all, they're gonna give it to the name, the champion. I mean the legend, you know, because they can do more with Pac-Man than they can do with Barrios. Just my opinion, you know. Um, I think politics, when it comes to the decision, plays a lot in it because I can see Rolly fighting the winner regardless, and I think they're setting up the winner to fight Rolly Romero. You know, Rolly is ready, won a title now. He has a title now. That Boots moved up. He's been elevated as a champion at the WBA. So I think Rolly fights the winner. So in my opinion, Barrios, he has to be consistent, keep the distance, keep that jab going. All right. Be consistent though. At the moment he starts slowing down, if he's slowing down just as quickly as Manny Pacquiao at 46 years old, he's gonna have a problem. He's gonna have a problem. Um, on the inside with the flurries, push off or press against Pacquiao on the inside. You don't want him throwing his flurries and landing them on the inside. Do a little bit of what we see Ugas did. That's the only way. You're not going to be able to move and out, you know, run him, not run, but he's going to keep up with you. Even at 46, he's going to still be fast. But he has to be more active than Manny Pacquiao. If he can't do that, and if their punch stats and punch output is anywhere close to each other, I give Manny Pacquiao the nod. Pacquiao, in my opinion, believe it or not, I don't think he should pace himself. I think he's going to be tired whether he starts out fast or slow. You know, at the end of the day, he's older. One thing about Barrios is that he goes to the body good, but he's not that consistent. I don't think he's going to go to the body as much as he probably should. I think Ugas was better at doing that, right? So with Manny Pacquiao, I think Pacquiao should start out fast. Seriously. I think he should try to do as much as he can against Barrios in those earlier rounds because Barrios doesn't have the best cardio either. So if he's able to slip and land some big left hands early and do some damage, possibly knocking him down early like he did against Keith Thurman, that would at least give him some momentum to continue pressing the way he did. Go to the body, you know, hurt this guy to the body, but come in quick before you get burned out. Pacquiao can't focus on pacing himself to fight a 12-round fight. Because even if he's tired, at least Barrios probably will be tired with you. I think that's his best shot in winning this fight by starting fast. If he starts relaxed because he's too focused on the later rounds, it'll be a waste. Counter that jab early with the right cross. I mean, the right, that sweeping right hook. Counter that jab early. Take his jab away. Without the jab, Barrios doesn't have much there. So if Pacquiao is able to counter his jab with his right hook and start shooting that straight left hand right after, he could put Barrios on his ass. Barrios is not the most durable fighter out there. And not only that, he has heart, but he blows his face. We saw what he looked like in the Keith Thurman fight. We seen what he looked like in the Ramos fight and the Tank fight. His face gets damaged very quickly. I actually do think Pacquiao has a good chance of winning this fight. Believe it or not. But I have to also be realistic here. He is 46 years old, and he's coming off 4 years without fight. 4 years. If Barrios start out quicker, and if he can at least pick up a few rounds early, I think Barrios definitely wins. I don't think he stops Pacquiao. If Pacquiao was to ever, I guess, if he is to not do well and he's really getting dominated at some point in this fight, I can see them just stopping it, maybe stopping on the stool, you know, maybe his corner or whatever. But I don't see it. I'm expecting it to be a slow, boring fight because I think at some point both of these guys are going to get tired. But I think Barrios is going to do a little bit more, just enough to get him the edge and win this fight. I know Barrios is kind of inconsistent. but there was certain fights there that he did look impressive. Like he did look impressive to me against Ugas. Um, earlier rounds against Ramos, he did look good. Um, he looked good against Santiago again. This is not Manny Pacquiao, but and he had his moments against Keith Thurman. He did good against Tank too early. I just think that I said all of that I said about him. I still think that there's a little more in what he is right now than what Pacquiao is at 46. Um, so I got Barrios winning. I'm leaning on the points decision. Uh, I'm not sure if I'm putting any money down on this fight, man. I'm probably gonna just wait and just watch it, and maybe I'll throw a live bet in there, depending on how the first round goes. But I'm going with Barrios. I just can't expect too much from a 46-year-old Pacquiao, especially one that looked tired and old 4 years ago. You know what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, I'm out of here. Please subscribe to the channel. I will be live for everything on Saturday. All right. And hit the thumbs up if you can. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.